Summers tasted like freedom. Wild, reckless freedom. We were young. We were invincible. Or so we thought. Back then, pranks were our currency. Harmless mostly. A rite of passage. A badge of belonging. We craved the adrenaline, the laughter, the thrill of it all. Looking back, it all seems so naive. So tragically naive. We were a pack, bound by mischief and midnight dares. There was Jake, the mastermind, Emily, the daredevil, and me, the cautious one, always hesitant, always outvoted. Our playground was this sleepy town. Our victims, usually unsuspecting neighbors. Looking back, it was all fun and games. Until it wasn't. The air crackled with anticipation that night. A new target, an abandoned house. Local legend whispered of a tragic past. A family perished. A fire. Unexplained circumstances. It was the perfect setting for our most daring prank yet. A mock seance. Ouija board. Candles, the works. We were practically giddy with excitement. The old house loomed large, a hulking shadow against the moonlit sky. A shiver ran down my spine, a sense of foreboding. I dismissed it as nerves. Jake, ever the pragmatist, had a plan. Emily, fueled by morbid curiosity, was ecstatic. We were ready, or so we thought. The air inside was thick with dust and decay. A musty smell lingered, clinging to every surface, every corner. It was as if time had stopped, leaving behind only the remnants of what once was. The scent of forgotten things permeated the air. We sat up in the living room, surrounded by relics of the past, dusty furniture, old photo albums, and memories long since abandoned. A single flickering candle cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. The light wavered, creating an eerie atmosphere that seemed to breathe with us. The Ouija board felt strangely cold beneath our fingertips. It was as if it had a life of its own, a chilling presence that sent shivers down our spines. Jake started with a joke. Nervous laughter filled the room, a feeble attempt to break the tension that hung heavy in the air. Then, silence. We placed our fingers on the planchette, the room growing still as we waited with bated breath. It moved, slowly at first, as if testing the waters, then faster with a sense of urgency that made our hearts race. The air grew colder. A low hum vibrated through the room, a sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The planchette darted across the board, spelling out words. At first, it was gibberish, random letters that made no sense. Then, clear as day, it spelled out a single word: leave. The message was unmistakable, a command that sent chills down our spines. We laughed it off, trying to convince ourselves it was just another one of Jake's tricks. But the laughter was hollow, filled with an underlying tension. But his face was pale. A bead of sweat trickled down his forehead, betraying the fear he tried to hide. Something felt wrong, deeply, unsettlingly wrong. The atmosphere was thick with an unspoken dread, a feeling that we were not alone. The room plunged into darkness. A blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. Emily. Panic seized us. We fumbled for our flashlights. The beam landed on Emily. She was frozen, eyes wide with terror, her finger pointing towards the staircase. A figure stood there, a silhouette, dark, menacing. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. We scrambled to our feet, racing towards the front door. Desperation fueled our every step. We burst into the night, gasping for air, shaking, changed. We never spoke of that night. Not a word. The silence was deafening, a heavy burden we all carried. A silent pact forged in fear, but the memory lingered. It was a constant shadow, always lurking in the back of our minds. A dark stain on our collective conscience. The laughter was gone, replaced by a void that none of us could fill. replaced by a chilling silence. We weren't invincible. We were fragile, breakable, and the weight of our actions bore down on us. We were fools, and we had paid the price of our innocence, our peace of mind. Or so we thought. The nightmares started. They were relentless, each one more vivid than the last. Vivid, unrelenting. The shadowy figure haunted our dreams, a constant reminder of that night. Emily's scream, the feeling of icy fingers brushing against my skin. It was as if the darkness had come alive. My home, once a sanctuary, now felt oppressive. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with dread. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside my window, sent shivers down my spine. The house was no longer a home. I was living in a constant state of fear. Every shadow, every sound was a potential threat, trapped in a waking nightmare. There was no escape, no respite. The weight of silence and the chill of fear were our constant companions. It wasn't just the nightmares. Things were happening. Unexplained occurrences, objects moving, whispers in the dead of night, shadows flitting past the corner of my eye. I tried to rationalize it. Stress, sleep deprivation. But deep down, I knew the truth. It followed us. That entity, that presence. It was no longer confined to the abandoned house. It was here, in my home. The house felt different, colder, the air thick with an unseen energy, a constant pressure. I started noticing things. Pictures askew, drawers left slightly open, the faint scent of mildew, like that night at the abandoned house. I was a prisoner in my own home, too afraid to stay, too terrified to leave. Sleep became a distant memory. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the figure, heard the scream, felt the icy touch. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger. Haunted eyes stared back. The carefree girl I once was, gone, replaced by a shell, a vessel for fear and regret. I tried talking to Jake and Emily. We sat around the table, our faces pale and drawn, our eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and desperation. But they were just as terrified. Their eyes mirrored my own dread, a silent acknowledgement of the horrors we faced, haunted by their own demons. Each of us carried our own burdens, our own nightmares that refused to let us rest. We were united in our fear, but also utterly alone. The bond that once brought us joy now felt like a chain, binding us to a shared nightmare. Our bond, once forged in mischief, now shackled us to a shared nightmare. We were trapped in a cycle of fear and despair, unable to break free. We were adrift in a sea of fear. No anchor, no sense of direction, just an overwhelming sense of dread that consumed us. No shore in sight. The horizon seemed endless, a bleak reminder of our hopeless situation. I sought answers, logic, anything that could provide a glimmer of hope or understanding, anything to make sense of the madness. I buried myself in books, searching for explanations, for a way out of this nightmare. I devoured books on the paranormal, consulted psychics. Desperation drove me to seek answers in places I never believed in before, clung to any shred of hope, but the truth remained. No matter how hard I tried, the darkness persisted. We had stumbled upon something dark, something ancient, an evil that had been lying in wait, and we had awakened it, and it wasn't letting go. The guilt was suffocating, the fear paralyzing. It felt like a weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I was living a half-life, a mere shadow of my former self, lost in a world of fear and uncertainty. A shadow of my former self. The reflection in the mirror was unrecognizable, haunted by the darkness we had unleashed. Years have passed. The fear remains, a constant companion. The pranks, the laughter, the carefree days of youth, all gone, erased by a single night of reckless abandon. We live with the consequences of our actions, haunted by the memories, forever changed. The line between reality and nightmare has blurred. Is it real, or a figment of our guilt-ridden imaginations? It doesn't matter. The fear is real. The consequences, devastating. A haunting reminder that some lines should never be crossed. Some doors best left unopened. We learned that lesson the hard way. And now we live with the ghost of our prank, forever.